I'm really excited that you get to be our
I know, I'm so
guest
excited.
of honor, our GOH. All right, so
Ooh, it feels
Beisel,
so
Elizabeth
special.
Beisel. Oh, hello. That was beautiful. um, okay, so first of all, I want to thank you about not only your history as an athlete and just everything that you've done as an athlete, but the topic of leadership, and not only how you've used that for years of your life before the Olympics, but how you used it at the Olympics and how that then served you, because I think that's going to be really important for a lot of people to hear about leadership. So I'd love to just intro you, Elizabeth Beisel, everybody, my fellow Florida Gator, swimmer and Olympic teammate in 2008. And Elizabeth, tell me a little bit just about your past, your history, kind of give the people something to learn about you.
Oh, okay. I think we're a little bit delayed, but that'll be cool. We'll figure it out, right? So basically, like Burckle said, my name's Elizabeth. I was born and raised in Rhode Island. So I started swimming when I was 5 years old, and swimming has sort of been my life in a lot of different stages. I swam competitively for the University of Florida, like Burckle did. I did that for 4 years, and then I continued to train there for another 3 as a professional athlete. I've been on Team USA since I was 13 years old. So I have 12 years of very vast experience because I have been a rookie, but I've also been a leader. So at some point within those 12 years, I made that transition, sort of figured my own way throughout navigating my career. And now I basically don't swim anymore. I love to swim still, but I don't compete anymore. So now I just get to work with wonderful people like Caroline Burckle and Rebecca Soni, and help make this world a better place. So it's awesome to be here today.
Oh, well, thanks, Beisel. Yeah, and hopefully the delay won't be too bad, but we'll figure it out, like you said. Okay, so I'm curious. We're on the topic of leadership. This is something that we have not talked about yet on any of these, and it's something that we've been getting questions about because I think that it's interesting to define a leader. And so, what would you say is your definition of a leader? And maybe keep in mind a little bit of, wide audiences, like what is your definition of a leader? And tell us a little bit about what you view that as and what you have maybe in the past viewed that as and how that changed and shifted.
Yeah. So I think leadership is one of the most interesting topics to talk about because it's so versatile. There is no one right way to lead. And there's so many ways that you can take control of the situation and lead a team, lead a company, whatever it is. And all of those ways are right. And so for me, I've led in many different ways. And I think that's why I love speaking about this, because I do have experience in different roles. And it basically comes down to, what do you contribute to your team? You have to figure out your role on that team before you can take a leadership position. So, and that, I mean, when I was at the University of Florida swimming for the Gators, I was the best swimmer. Okay, I say that humbly, but like all 4 years, I was scoring all the points, well, a lot of the points.
Right.
And so I was in a leadership role where I was the best on the team, and my role was to lead by example. I was never late for anything. I always worked hard. I never cheated on a set. I did things right inside the pool and outside the pool. And that was definitely the type of leader that I was at Florida. Because I was, one of the best. And I was definitely not a vocal leader there. When some people maybe weren't doing the right things, I had another captain with me that took control of that stuff, that dealt with more of like the face-to-face confrontation stuff, because I don't deal with that well. That's not a leadership style of mine. But luckily I was co-captain with another girl who that's absolutely how she worked. And so she and I worked great together. And then on the flip side of the coin, when I was captain of the Olympic team, totally different story. I am not the best on the team. In 2016, I swam one event and it was the first day. It was the 4 a.m. And that was basically like the year Elizabeth Beisel was going to win her gold medal.
Right.
Clearly didn't work out. Instead of me winning a gold medal, I got 5th, which in hindsight is great. But when you're in the moment and you're competing for the United States of America, unfortunately, coming home without a medal is characterized as a failure. And that's how I read into my 5th place finish. And so I remember finishing the race, and I had to captain, but I basically went into the locker room and I was like, I have 2 choices. I can, 1, spend the rest of the Olympics for another week feeling bad for myself, crying myself to sleep every night and not participating in my last Olympic Games. Or I can rise to the occasion, be the leader that I was elected to be, and help other people have the meet that they can have the best meet possible, have the best Olympics that you can have. And that's the choice that I had. And so I ultimately sat in the shower race for 15, 20 minutes, cried nonstop. I got it out of my system. And then I went back for the rest of the meet at the Olympics, and I was literally, I tried to be every place at once. You know, if somebody needed me, I was there, whether it was just somebody sitting next to them before a race and giving them that calming sense of just another soul next to you, or it was making somebody laugh before their race, which is what Allison Schmidt needs. Or if it was like me helping putting on a suit for somebody, or, you know, one of the things that I made sure that I did was every single time when you walk out for the Olympics and you're behind the blocks, you normally look up to your cheering section. And I always be front and center holding an American flag, because sometimes when you're competing at the most pressure-filled meet of your life, all you need to see is just a familiar smiling face to give you that sense of calmness and confidence to know that, like, oh my gosh, I may be competing in front of thousands, millions, billions right now, but I just saw Elizabeth Beisel in the stands and she gave me a smile and a thumbs up, and I'm ready to kick some butt. And I've led from being an underdog, from being, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, what do you contribute to your team? I was not going to contribute medals. So I sort of had to figure where else I was going to contribute. And maybe in the eyes of the United States, I didn't contribute anything. But to my teammates and to myself, I know that I gave them something that means more than an Olympic medal. And so there, like I said before, there are just so many different styles of leadership. But the one thing that I would say is never a leader, ever, is somebody shouting from a rooftop and ordering people around. That's
an interesting point. Yeah. That's a really interesting point.
That's not a leader. That is somebody who needs complete control over a situation and has nothing but their best interest in mind. And so I think another really good aspect of a leader is being able to connect with people. And I'm not saying that you need to be an extrovert or super gregarious, but you need to have the ability to connect with people on a deeper level than just the hey, hello, the small talk. Because you need to know what people need. You know, Caroline Burckle is different from Allison Schmidt, who is different from Rebecca Soni. And if I'm going to be a captain of these people, I can't feed them all the same thing. So a part of me being a captain is just like getting to know people, getting to know what they need, what they don't want before a race, or like how I should communicate with them. And it really is, you have to meet in the middle. Because I've learned that sometimes my personality is too much for people. Oh, somebody who is an extreme introvert is very overwhelmed with me. And that's okay, because I can meet them in the middle. You know, they might turn up and I'll turn down. And that's, you know, I think that's another good personality trait that a leader has to have, is you're not always right. You know, your way isn't always the highway. And you have to keep in mind that feedback. Right. And just reading people. So that was a long tangent. I'm sorry.
No. Okay. So first of all, I think I can relate with you a lot on that. Okay. Like entirely. So, okay. So tell me this, I could literally talk about this topic for a long time. Okay. Leadership in general, when you talk about matching people's energy. So like if you're a kind of leader, if you're a kind of person, how important is it to know your leadership style, but then how do you know your leadership style while adapting? Like, how do you know that you are specifically really darn good at certain stuff, but then, you know, you gave the example of like, okay, at Florida, these were my strengths. Okay. So, and you know what, on your club team, you probably had a different leadership style. So how do you say, this is my leadership style, this is my contribution, and now I'm learning how to meet other people where they're at instead of just doing what you're good at and not paying attention to where other people are.
Yeah.
Like, what's the balance there? How do you do that?
Yeah.
It's challenging.
It depends, opinion, on the environment that you're in. And I think, you know, that's ever changing. You have to be able to adapt. So like, for me, for an instance, you know, I'm at the University of Florida. I am not going to be a vocal leader because I feel like I lead enough by my actions. Whereas, and my actions meaning me scoring a lot of points, me working hard, me proving myself that, listen, I'm doing all of these things right. You should be doing them too. You know, if the best swimmer is here doing it, you should be doing it. But guess what? For me at the Olympics, I'm not the best swimmer. I'm still a great swimmer, but am I the one that people should be watching necessarily? No, I only got 5th place. So that sort of had to happen where I was like, you know what? People obviously aren't going to be like, oh, let me do what Elizabeth Beisel did this year. But I'm going to help people almost enhance what they do and make them feel more comfortable with what they do. And so you do have to be a versatile human being in order to be a leader, because whether you're in the corporate America world or you're in the athletic world or you're, you know, an entrepreneur like you, Burckle and Reb, it's like every single situation is different, and you have to figure out the environment before you decide what your lead style will be. So
that's really, really powerful. No. Okay, so like, what's a moment in time that you remember? It can be any time, from when you were a little girl to college to the Olympics. What was a piece of feedback that you've gotten, verbal, nonverbal, whatever it is, to where you had to then adjust your leadership style? Like, is there a specific moment where you were like, okay, this person or this team needed something and I need to like adapt to that? Like, I need to understand that my strengths are good here, but how can I then like take that leadership style and put it in my environment? Like, based on the feedback you were given. It can be harsh, it can be anything.
I think, you know, for me in the sport, I was really good when I was younger. So I think I almost always led by example and never verbal. And I remember when I was at University of Florida, I sort of took that just sort of like action leadership with me to Florida. And that was how I led. And I remember having so many meetings with Coach Troy being like, Elizabeth, like, you are having a great impact on these girls, but you need to stop being afraid of what people think of you and tell them if they're doing something wrong. You know, like, I am the biggest people pleaser you'll ever meet in your life. Like, I never want anybody's feelings to be hurt. I want to say yes to everybody, but guess what? That doesn't make a good leader. Not all the time. And, you know, if you have another big I remember at University of Florida, we had a really great girl on the team, and she wasn't necessarily doing the right things all the time. And she was one of my good friends, and I couldn't say anything to her. I just couldn't.
Right.
And that was a time where I severely failed at being a leader, because a leader has to sort of look at the big picture and put feelings and emotions aside and think what is best for the team right now. And what I should have done was taken that girl aside and told her, listen, you're doing X, Y, and Z. It's good for your teammates. You're having a negative effect on everybody around you. You need to change it. But of course, me being the people pleaser that I am, I just let it happen. And that was one of the things that I regret most, is that it takes a lot of bravery to stand up to an enemy, but it takes even more bravery to stand up to a friend. And that is definitely something that I've been trying to learn throughout my life, is I don't have to agree with everybody all the time. I don't always have to be like the nice person. Sometimes you have to be able to give and receive
Yeah.
constructive criticism. And that's something that I've been working on, being not mean, just, upfront. I think women tend to
Yeah.
have a problem with this more than men. Men, they have an
Right.
issue, they talk about it, and it's over. Women, we let
Right.
things fester until it's a volcanic eruption.
Yes.
And so
It's so true.
yeah. And so that was I'm actually glad I brought that up, because when Coach Troy told me that, I sort of switched my mindset into thinking about that bigger picture. And then fast forward to when I was captain of the Olympic team.
Right.
I remember, unfortunately, not everybody is going to have the meet of their life at the Olympics. There are going to be failures.
Right.
And in one of the team meetings that I had at the Olympics, I think we were like 2 days or 3 days into the meet, and some people were doing amazing, some people weren't. And I was like, everybody that is not having the meet that you want to be having right now, you only have one choice. I'm not giving you two choices. You have one. To cry, you do it in the locker room and see you. You do it in your room where no one else can see you. You do not speak about your races. You do not talk negatively about the Olympics. Your only job now that you are done swimming is to make sure that everybody else that has a meet left is going to have the best meet of their life, and they're going to have fun doing it. Because negative energy sucks the soul out of a team. And it's like wildfire. Wildfire. Like
same thing.
Right? Yeah. Well, I like flowers too. But yeah, I mean, and as soon as that fire ignites, it spreads. And because I saw people like, they would have a bad race, and then they would sulk in the stands and complain about, why me? Oh my God. And it's like, I feel you, girl. I feel you, dude.
Right.
Like, I had a bad meet too, but I am making a decision to put that aside for the next 7 days and do what's best for the team right now. And Coach Troy never given me that advice to sort of be assertive and not care so much about what people thought of me. I'm able to hold that team meeting. And after I had that team meeting, I did not see one person sulking in the team area, not one person in the stands that was feeling sorry for themselves or crying. And it really, I think, the way that we looked at that swim meet, and we put ourselves aside and we put our country first for just a week.
Right.
And so I think that's one important lesson that I learned being a leader, is that you don't have to be mean, but sometimes you do need to be assertive and say what's best for the team.
Right. And I think it's a sense of directness too. It's a sense of meeting them, like you said, where they're at. And so there's a difference between being, like you said, a leader where you're barking orders or you're telling people how to do things and everything. And then also understanding that your leadership style can shift, change, mold according to your environment, but that you had to rise to the occasion at something like the Olympics or at something like University of Florida when there's like results on the line. Like when you have results on the line and you're in an environment where there is a lot of pressure, there's a high amount of pressure, there's a high amount of worrying what other people think of you, there's a high amount of comparison. Sometimes being a leader is the hardest. Like it's really challenging when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're in those situations where you have to rise to an occasion. So that being said, how do you practice leadership on a daily basis? Like, how did you practice that for the big show? Like when you're at practice at Florida, when you're in the classroom, when you're just talking to your friends on the side of the road in the middle of Gainesville or, wherever it is, what is it that you show them body language wise, like understanding wise, listening wise, like that are qualities of leadership that you then can take to the big stage in the time of competition?
So I think being a leader, it's almost like a triangle. Like you have to start and lay a foundation before you climb to the top and become that leader. So the foundation for me in the way that I lead is developing personal relationships with people. And this goes back to when I made my first national team. I was 13 and I had no friends. I remember I would eat meals alone because I'm a 13-year-old on a team with, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And I don't blame them. I have nothing to talk about with them. And, I'm still middle school. I'll never forget Natalie Coughlin one day after practice sat down at my table and she just asked me, how are you doing? And I remember that was like a switch moment for me, because I was like, Natalie Coughlin, the captain of this team, just asked me how I'm doing. And it meant nothing for her. It was just an act of kindness for her, but the enormity and just like the impact it had on me was huge. And from that moment on, I told myself, if I am ever in the position where I can make somebody feel comfortable and where I can be a leader as well, I'm going to be that person sitting down with somebody who may not feel like they belong or may feel like an outcast. And so for me, I was able to stay on that national team each year, see everybody evolve, but also see newcomers come in. And it's intimidating when you join a national team or a high school team or a college team or a new workplace. You don't know anybody, right? And you're walking into this new foreign place blind. And all you hope is that somebody says hi and acknowledges you. And for me, Natalie did that for me. And I am almost paying it forward. And every single time that I see somebody new coming into whatever it is that I'm doing, I make sure to introduce myself, make them feel comfortable around me. And that is the foundation that you have to lay down in order to lead somebody. Because if you never make that personal connection with somebody, why should they listen to you as a leader?
Amen, sister.
Tell me why, And so that is like step one, regardless of whether you're an athlete, a CEO, an entrepreneur, a lawyer, you have to make that personal connection first in order to grow your triangle to becoming a leader.
Yes. This is so good. I think that's something that I've noticed a lot lately. And I mean, I'm not going to like blame it on our culture now. This could have happened, thousands of years ago. I don't know. But I think that there is a like demand almost to produce specific ways to lead people. Like, this is how you do it. Here are the guidelines. Here are this and this. But what we're forgetting is that personal and interpersonal connection and understanding the person and hearing them. Like, I hear you. I'm here for you, and we're working together towards a common goal. Like, here's the intention. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how direct we're going to be. Here's the feedback we're going to openly give each other. Like, connecting in that way. And body language is big too. Body language is big. Like, when you're open and like accepting of others. I remember when I was a freshman, Maureen Farrell was a senior, and I'll never forget, like, the ramp by the O-Dome. I was sitting there just bawling my eyes out one day for like no reason. I don't even know why I was really crying. I was like homesick or I don't know. Actually, I had not been homesick, but the point is that I was like bawling my eyes out. And I remember she just came down, same thing as what Natalie did to you, just came down, sat down next to me. And, Amanda Beer did this as well at the Olympics, same thing, just sit down and be like, what's coming up for you? Like, let's talk about this and work and move forward. Because there's something about like somebody turning toward you to where you can then feel open to then start strategizing. I think presence is very underrated, and it's very, very important to provide that presence. So if you could think of a time that you first remember learning how to lead and your first successful situation there, maybe you were like 11, I don't know, maybe you were a lot younger. I know for me, like, high school comes up, right? Like, high school, like, how do you really know what your worth as a leader? And give an example of maybe that time in your life to where you were like, I am a leader. Like, here's what I can do. Here's what I know I can do.
It's crazy because I think I associate me being a leader with when I had the and that's not the case. You do not have your ability taken away to be a leader if you don't have captain next to your name. And so for me, obviously, when I think of me, I was captain of the Florida swimming team and then captain of the Olympic team. But I think like the first ever time that I felt truly like a captain, was when I was probably 14, and we were going to like a New England championship swim meet. And it was one of those, we were in a very intense rivalry with another team within New England. And this other team was very, cocky is the wrong word.
Right.
Just like very like in your face
Entitled
about things. Right.
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
Entitled.
Yeah.
And it just like grew so much that our team started talking so poorly on this other team. And it almost grew into a lot of negative energy. And I remember this, me as a 14-year-old, and being like, guys, why are we so focused on what they are doing?
Right.
If they want to be that type of team and be up in your face about everything and whatever they do, I'm not going to say anything, but like,
yeah.
why do we need to sort of feed their fire? Like, why do we need to ignite it even more? Why what we do best, which is race and have fun. And I remember that like the entire meet sort of switched on time after I had that little like powwow with my friends. And it was maybe just me and 8 other swimmers. Like, this was not me changing the world. But I remember that was the first time where I ever sort of spoke out. And I almost felt like I was nervous. I was like, oh my God, like, am I in the right position to do this? Like, am I overstepping boundaries? You know, me like, but after I said that, it was also as if the other team didn't exist and we were only focused on us. And I think that was like a huge moment for me, because even in life, like, if you focus too much on what somebody else is doing or another company is doing or whatever, it's going to eat you away inside, and it's only going to be you swallowing your own poison. So you need to sort of step out of that, focus on yourself. It's okay to be selfish. Like, I've also learned that, you know, it's okay to put you and your team first. And so I think that was, you know, when I was 14, that was the first time that I was ever like, whoa, what did I just do? But like, it worked. So nerve-wracking, but cool. And a big step for a 14-year-old girl. So.
Right. And I think that that's something that we get questions about all the time. And I know that it's confusing, right? So I know that being a leader can sometimes be categorized as either I am or I'm not. And so when some people find that feeling of, well, I'm not a leader, I don't know what I contribute, what would be your answer to that? Like, now that you've been there and now that you've seen those and had those experiences and you're able to share those experiences, when you do have athletes or even your friends say, I'm not a leader, like, I don't know I mean, like, you're the leader, I'm not really a leader. Like, what would you say to that? Like, how would you be able to respond to something like that? Both empathetic or sympathetic, or, you know, how do you do that and go about that and then strategize with them?
Yeah. I think every single human being on this planet will be in a situation where they have to be a leader at some point.
Yeah. Right.
There is no way you're going to coast through life and just always follow the leader. You are always going to have a gut feeling about something. You know, if I tell you, hey, we're going to Whole Foods, but in your mind, you're like, no, but I really want to go to Trader Joe's. You have an opinion on something. You have that gut feeling, and you don't always have to succumb to that. You can speak out and be like, no, I really wanted to go to Trader Joe's tonight, and we're going to go. And I'm probably going to be like, you know what? I love Trader Joe's too. And it's just you sort of being comfortable enough and confident enough to speak out and speak your true self. And I think that's particularly hard in today's society, because we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. You know, she does this way and that's the best way. I could never do it like that. So why should I even try? And that is such a detrimental mindset to especially, I mean, any athlete, male or female, but especially young women. It's like, we are entitled to our own opinion. We are entitled to our side of the story. And it's like, if you speak out on that, that's you being a leader. That's you telling your side and you wanting to make your place and your world a better place. And so for me, it's just like, have that confidence, and every girl has it within them. sometimes you just have to dig a little bit deeper
Yeah.
than some people. But for me, it was like, I never defined myself as a leader. You know, I defined myself as a swimmer. Honestly, that was me,
Right.
Elizabeth
Right.
Beisel, the swimmer, never Elizabeth Beisel, the leader or the captain. And it's an evolution. You don't start something and immediately become a leader. You know, you sort of have to grow through what you're doing, learn the ropes, and then once you're comfortable enough and confident enough, you can then pass down your leadership skills. And I've taken little things from everybody. You know, I've taken things
Yeah.
from Natalie Coughlin. I've taken things from Teresa Crippen. I've taken things from Allison
Yeah.
Schmidt, Michael Phelps. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm just like a conglomerate of everybody, you know? And so, and that's just how I turned into Elizabeth Beisel, the leader. And you can define yourself in whatever way that you want. I think it just comes down to you having the confidence to be in that position, because everybody can be a
Yeah.
leader.
That's a great insight. I think that taking things from other people that have done it before you and learning from them and saying, they did that. That's interesting. You know I have that strength too. How can I adopt that and then adapt to it and make it my own? I think that's really interesting because we learn from people before us. There's, you know, rarely is anything always going to be like your first idea. And even if it was your first idea, you got it from somewhere. Something inside of you was given that tool. You know, you were taught that. And so I agree. I think that's a really good insight. Actually, someone just asked, you know, if someone isn't maybe the top scorer or they're not named a leader, they're not named a captain, how can they then lead from their position? Like, how do you lead from your position that you're in, even if you're not deemed the leader?
I'm so glad that question was asked. Because the truth of the matter is, you do not have to have the title in order to lead. Like, yeah, it's nice to have, and it puts you at the top of the totem pole. But if you are somebody that's coming to practice every day on time, you're working hard every single day, you're doing the right things, you know, you bring people up, you're there for your teammates after a race, you are a leader. You don't have to say that you have the title, but I put it this way. I think, in my opinion, very simply, being a good leader comes down to just being a good person.
Yep.
And if you are a good person and you can put your own ego aside at times, you're a leader. And you do not have to be the highest point scorer. Look at me at the Olympics. What did I win? Literally nothing. But I was able to make an impact on my teammates by being a good cheerleader for them, by being there for them before their races, by making sure that their suit straps were on, making sure that I was cheering for them. Whatever it was, I was there. And I didn't score any points there. I didn't win any medals there. So you could argue that I was one of the worst on the team, but was still able to make a huge impact on everybody else's successes. And sometimes that's how you lead. You don't lead by being the best in the pool. You lead by being the best out of the pool.
That's a really solid statement there. And I think that when you start to break down what you're good at and what your strengths are, you can then say, okay, I'm a really good listener. I have good presence. I'm a helper. I'm creative, so I can help people creatively think through things, or I'm a cheerleader. You know, you find these strengths and then you use those. And then you take the feedback from people that can help you be better at what you want to be better at. So then you can then evolve in your leadership. Like you already said, it's an evolution. You're not just going to show up and be like, here's my style. That's all I've got for you here. You know, it's like you learn your style, you learn what you're good at, and then you evolve into something greater every time. And something to note that I want you to touch on before we start to wrap up, any last like thoughts that you have, would be, how have you taken sports leadership and turned it into leadership now? So now that you're retired athlete, which is always funny to say, it's like, oh, I'm retired, you know, but if you could say, you know, because it's true, you know, I think it's important to touch on, like, it's not just about being in the field of play or at the pool or whatever. So if you're a leader there, how are you then taking it into your life? Like, how are you leading in your life? What are the characteristics and qualities that you find show up that overlap.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I'm like, and I'm still learning that too. I feel like lately I've been in the leader of my own life because I basically determine my future right now. And that was really scary. And, you know, when you retire swimming, you lose an identity. And so I lost the identity that I spoke on earlier, but I gained endless possibilities of a new identity. And so for me, I am allowing myself to have a chance to sort of dabble in whatever it is that I like. And I'm finding what I don't like. I'm finding what I do like. And it's almost like that mindset where I was like, okay, I like what Natalie does. I like what Teresa does. Maybe I don't like what she does. And so I'm sort of just like picking off the trees and adding to my basket and figuring out like what is going to serve me best. And so for me, that's a leadership position in control. And I could very easily just sit here and apply for like an easy job at, I don't know, an easy job that I wouldn't necessarily like, and just like settle and be like, you know what, this is what I'm doing now. But I refuse to settle, and I want to be somebody that is doing what they love. And that's a big leap, and it's a big risk because you understand that more than anybody. You're an entrepreneur. You started from ground zero and have built this incredible community. I cannot even fathom the amount of work that has gone into that, and like sleepless nights. And it's like, you're a leader because you took a risk. You literally made a company. You made a brand. And I'm not there yet, but I'm slowly figuring out, you know, like what do I want to do?
And see, this is where I would step in from my position and say, sure, Rebecca and I have started this and we're leaders in that sense, but every single Olympic athlete that we work with is a leader, and they all provide something entirely different to our team, just like every athlete under them provides something entirely different to them. So the leadership thing trickles down, like it trickles down through the ranks, it trickles down. So it's not necessarily like, you know, like you said before, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to have the title. You just have to have the impact, the influence, and the ability to show up. Because I think that's huge. Like, show up for somebody, show up and be absolutely direct and honest with the feedback and you know, delivering it as well as accepting it. So I agree with you entirely on that. And it's the risk factor is huge. So you reminded me of something. We have our coach, our leader, one of our leaders at Rise, his name's Tom, leads us, and he has this seminar that he travels around the world to teach, and it's called TASK, and it stands for TASK, and it's essentially elements of a leader, like how to communicate and lead others, and it's treat people with dignity and respect is the T, assume positive intent all the time, strengths and solutions. So what are people's strengths? What are some solutions? What are your strengths? What are the solutions? And keep people empowered. So the same that you had as a leader at Florida and as a leader at the Olympics, it's like you're laying the foundation by connecting, treating them with respect, assuming that they have a positive intention, you know, assuming that they want the best, and then understanding their strengths and giving them reasons to impact, right? Like you're turning toward them. And so that's like so interesting you just said that, because we're learning that as well now that we're creating something different than being in sports, which is really interesting.
And it's amazing that it can tie over from sports to like corporate America.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so to wrap it up with, and I know that people are going to have a bunch of questions after this, I want you to explain the impact that you can specifically yourself own that you've had on your world. Like your own impact. If someone were to say, Elizabeth Beisel, what is the impact as a leader that you can stand by and say, I've done this, I've created this? And it's a hard question. I'm putting you on the spot.
I think my impact would be just that personal connection. I think that everybody that I come across, when I am speaking to them, that's who I'm speaking to, and you have my undivided attention. And I make you feel comfortable in my presence. I want to listen. I want to hear your side of it. And I want to say that I will meet you in the middle. And then probably another one is that I'm a stranger. I always find something to connect with somebody on, and that immediate friendship just starts. And I think that's something that has helped me through my leadership, because you, as an Olympic athlete, you know this, Burckle, you work with so many different athletes. There are athletes that are in the zone and they don't want to be bothered, and that's them. And then there are athletes like you and me, and we're like outgoing, and we'll know. And so it's hard, but I've gotten better at maneuvering my way through different personalities. And and just like seeing what people need from me will come down or go up to where they are.
I love this conversation. I could talk about this all day. I think the biggest takeaways that I'm hearing are that you provide presence and connection, that you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You can be a leader at any level, and it's a choice. Like, it's a choice to change the energy, to meet people where they're at, to understand the environment. Like, you make that choice. You don't have to do anything. It's a choice. And I think when you can shift that perspective, right, from like, I have to lead, to like, this is an opportunity. Like, this is an opportunity to step in, step up, and grow within that, you know? So that's what I'm hearing. But, you know, I know that you've had, I mean, this is like, honestly, I think anybody that is watching this and that tunes in to the very end of this, like, you are probably, and I can now say this just because, like, I've seen you grow and I've seen you go through the entire spectrum of things, probably one of the better leaders I've ever met. And simply by presence and by your ability to allow and create space for other people. Like, honestly, I think anyone would agree. I think we could literally take a nationwide poll of people that know you, and they would agree. So it's true. Well, that's why it's so important coming from you. It's a very important topic. And I really think that you're stepping into that with whatever path you go on, leading others and leading from the front with them. That's awesome.
And just like one last thing is that I want to say is, if you are leading and you don't have that title, people will notice what you're doing. And I guarantee you, eventually you will have that title. It's just, you sort of have to lay down that groundwork, whatever your groundwork is. For me, it's personal connections. For you, it might be showing up on time, working hard, doing everything right. At some point, people will notice. We are humans. We are constantly watching and learning from other people. Someone will see you, and someone will put you in a leadership position. So
that's key. 100%. It goes back to being aware. Just being totally aware and understanding and accepting. This is awesome. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we close out? Is there, like, where can people find you? Like, how can people get in touch with you if they want to see what you're up to? Because obviously you're into music. You're into a lot of very amazing things. So I'll let you kind of brag on yourself a little bit and give an update of how you're starting to lead in your life now.
Yeah. So I'm on the interwebs. So if you want to find me, although Caroline and Reb will attest to this, I'm so not tech savvy. It took me like 2 weeks to figure out these little pod things. So bad.
She crushed it. She did great.
Yeah. But you know, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have an email. It's all like eBeisel34. But basically right now I've played violin since I was 3. And nobody really knows because I never really told anybody. So the roots that I'm exploring right now is like, okay, like, music is a passion of mine. Like, do I want to make this a career or maybe just like a short time little stint. So I've been playing a lot more violin lately and doing stuff like that. So it's been super fun, and I miss swimming every day. I miss my friends from swimming every day. But unfortunately, swimming the 400 IM won't last forever. So here I am.
You know, I felt the same way about the 400 free. So
yeah, you know exactly how I feel.
I think yours is a little harder. But thank you so much. This is so insanely helpful. And I think that everyone's going to take about 10 nuggets of information from this, if not more.
Good.
But we appreciate your leadership, and you're one hell of a Rise mentor and teammate to all of us. So thank you for sharing all your insights today.
Well, thank you to you and Rev for giving us Olympic athletes this platform to use, because it truly, honestly, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't know what goes into it, but I know it's a lot. And I'm truly humbled to work with you and Rev every single day. So thank you.
And we you. So boom. Yes. All right. Thanks, Beisel. Thank you guys.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.